Hi and welcome back. This is part 2 of my armature and bone rigging series. Part 2 of part 3. The third part will be taking the animations that we make in this part and then putting it together in the game engine. So let's get right to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change one of my windows here to the dope sheet editor. And I'll go ahead and do something like that. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to create animation actions. So the way that it works is that you create these actions that are saved actions. We're going to create 3. We're going to create a walk cycle, a run cycle, and a just standing still action. And then in the third part, then we'll be able to actually control those actions when they get used in the game engine. All right, so over here in the dope sheet, I'm going to click on the dope sheet pop-up menu and I'm going to change the mode to action editor. And now what you get is you get these really important 2 little buttons here. The new button will go ahead and create a brand new action, as it says, and then this button on the left will then let you browse all of your actions that you've created. Okay, so the first thing you need to do before you actually create an action is you want to select a bone in the armature. And what that will do is it will then attach the action to whatever's selected. So you don't want to select your character's body because then the action will be attached to the character's body. And you want the action to be attached to the armature, to the bones. So since I'm going to start off with a walk cycle, I'm going to start off by selecting one of the leg bones. So then I'm going to come to the dope sheet action editor, click on new. The action is just called action and I'm going to call it walk. So now that's there. Now I can actually get into the posing and the animation. So I'm going to quickly hop into side view here, and with the leg bone selected, I'm going to come down to my timeline and make sure I'm on frame 1. On frame 1, I'm going to press R and rotate the leg upwards like that. I'll then select the other leg bone and rotate it and have it go in the opposite reverse action, something like that. I now need to keyframe the change in those 2 bones, so I'll shift right click, select both leg bones, and I'll go ahead and press I to insert a keyframe, and I will keyframe the location rotation or lock rot. And there we go. You can see up here in the dope sheet that on frame 1 I now have 2 keyframes, one for the left leg and one for the right leg. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my last frame, and I've determined that I want my last frame to be frame 20. So I'm going to come down here to my timeline and I'm going to set my end frame to be 20. And I'm going to zoom in using the mouse wheel on the timeline so I can actually see it. Alternatively, you can put your mouse pointer down on the timeline and you can press the home key on your keyboard and it will auto resize. So now I'm going to go to frame 20, and I could do one of 2 things. Keep those 2 bones selected, and I could insert another keyframe, and so here you'll see them. You'll see it up here. So frame 1 is the exact same as 20, and that's going to make a loopable cycle that will repeat itself and look really nice and smooth. Now let me go ahead and I'm just going to delete these keyframes I just made on 20. Let's say I didn't do that. What else could I do? Well, to duplicate a frame, the easiest way is I can come over here to frame 1, I can press B to box select, and I can select those keyframes. I can then press Shift D and I can then go ahead and move them over here to frame 20. So I can do that as well, whatever you feel is easiest. Okay, so now that the start and the end of my animation are the same, I'm good. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to get ready to do the middle pose. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom of my 3D window and click on the pose menu, and I'm going to choose copy pose. I'll then go to the timeline and the dope sheet and I'm going to go halfway, so frame 10. I'll then go back to the pose menu and I'll choose this option here, paste X flipped pose. And what it did was it basically did a mirror flip of those 2 bones. Now with them still selected, I'll press I, I'll make a keyframe on the location rotation, and I'll press play. For some strange reason, it doesn't look like it did it. I don't know why. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete those middle ones there. I'll select these guys again. Try it one more time. There we go. Okay, there we go. Copy pose, frame 10, paste X flipped. It doesn't seem to be working. Interesting. I don't know why. Nope. Hi, and welcome back to part 2 of the Armatures and Bones rigging tutorial series. So in part 2 I'm going to show you how to create 3 different action animations. And then in part 3 you'll be able to take those 3 action animations and put them into the game engine. So let's get right to it. So I'm going to take one of my 3D windows here on the left and I'm going to change it to the dope sheet editor. I'm then going to come down here to the dope sheet edit mode and choose the action editor. Okay, I'm going to come over here to my 3D window and I'm going to select one of the leg bones. I'll get back into the side view. Alright, so what I want to do is I need to create a brand new action. So the first step is you always want to select a bone in your armature. When you create a new action, that action will then get linked to the bone because you had the bone selected. So make sure you don't have a body part of your character selected. You always want to make sure it's a bone of the armature. Okay, so now that that is selected, I'm going to come down here and click on New, and I'm going to rename the action. It's going to be Walk, so this will be my walk cycle. And I'm now on frame 1, so make sure you're on frame 1 of the timeline. And I'm going to take this leg bone here and I'm going to press R and rotate it, and I'll rotate it forward like that. I'll then take the other leg bone and I'll press R and I'll rotate it back like that. I now need to insert a keyframe, so I'll select both bones by shift right clicking, and with both bones selected I'll press I and I'll choose location rotation or lock rot. And you can see up here in the dope sheet action editor that now there are some keyframes there. You'll see that in the dope sheet you have what looks like 3 keyframes here. The top one is actually the summary. I'm not a big fan of viewing the summary. It just makes things look a little bit more cluttered in my opinion. So if you want to try turning that off, just widen the dope sheet window, come on down here and click on the button that says summary, and the summary will basically disappear. And the reason why I don't like it is because now it's a little cleaner up here. I see 2 items, 2 bones were animated, and I have 2 keyframes, and it's just a little easier. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is my walk cycle is going to be a 20 frame walk cycle, and that's pretty traditional. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the timeline, and I'm going to change the end frame to 20 frames. I'm now going to come to the timeline and I'm going to zoom in with the scroll wheel so I can just see the timeline a little better. You can also on your keyboard press the home button and that will zoom. And I'm going to go to frame 20. This is my last frame, and I'm going to press I and insert another keyframe. And so you can see up here in the dope sheet that I have 2 keyframes, and this orange bar that's in between shows that there's no change from frame 1 to frame 20, and so there's no change over those. So there we are there. Now what I want to do is I want to go halfway, so I'm going to go to frame 10 and I'm going to reverse these bones. So there is a way that I showed in class that you can do what's called paste flipped X pose, and that's right here. It's under the pose menu, and you would have to copy the pose and then you could do paste X flip pose. I was just trying it before I was recording this screencast, and for some reason it wasn't working. So for this I'm just going to go ahead and show you manually how to do it. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, so I'm going to take, on frame 10, I'm going to take this bone here, and I'll just press R, and I'll rotate it back, so it's like this. And then I'll go ahead and select the other leg bone and rotate that forward. So now they're just an exact sort of mirror flip of what they were before. I'll shift right click, select both bones, I'll press I, I'll insert a keyframe, and we should have, let me turn off perspective, there we go, or turn perspective back on. Now if I press play, we should have a nice little walking animation, and there we are. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in, I'm going to go back to frame 1, and now I'm going to add in a little bit of arm movement. So I'm going to select, this is his left arm, and we basically want to do opposites. So we've got his left leg is forward, so I want to have his left arm is moving backwards. So his left arm is going to be back like that, and his right arm is going to be moved forward like that. Okay, so just like that, and you can kind of see that. And then I'm going to go ahead and shift right click, select both arm bones, insert a lock rod keyframe, and you can see those are now there. I again want to duplicate these, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my dope sheet. I'm going to press A to deselect all, and I'm going to box select, so press B, and I'm going to select the two keyframes for the arms. I'm then going to duplicate them by pressing Shift D, and I'm going to drag them out to frame 20, so that way they're duplicates. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to frame 10, and I'm going to have them, of course, go opposite from each other. So I'll take this bone here and have it rotate forward, so it's opposite, and then I'll select the other bone and rotate it backwards, so it's just doing the exact opposite. Select both arm bones, insert a keyframe, and there we are. Okay, so we'll zoom out, take a look at it, and now you can see you've got a real simple look, and it works. Okay, good. So that's pretty much done. I'm going to go ahead and save now. Alright, so now I want to go ahead and make a run version, or a run cycle, which is really just the same walk cycle, but I'm going to speed it up. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and, remember, you want to select a bone. We're going to come down here to the bottom of the action editor, and you can see right here that it says walk. I'm going to go ahead and click on add to create a new one, and I'm going to rename it, and I'll call it run. Now, here's something that you absolutely must know. If I click on this action browser right here, you'll now see that we have two here. So there's my run and there's my walk. So now what I want to do is I want to take the keyframes here for the run action, and I want to speed them up. So probably the quickest way of doing this is, right now it's a 20 frame animation. I want to put it in half. I want to make it a 10 frame animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press A twice and select all my keyframes. I'm going to click and make the green bar here on frame 1. I'm then going to press S, and I'm going to scale all of the keyframes back so that they come basically to frame 10. So my third keyframe is happening on frame 10, which means my second one is happening here on 5. And there we go. If I go ahead and press play now, you'll see that the character is finishing there. The only other thing I need to do is I need to come down here to the end frame and change that to 10. There we go. And now when I press play, you'll see that it's much faster, and it's of course looping. Okay, so let's look at the action browser now, and you'll see that again the run is there, and if I go back to walk, I can go ahead and press play, and for some strange reason, and I'm not sure why, the walk is saying that it's basically only at 10 frames, so I'm going to have to kind of figure that one out. Okay, I might have to pause the video and come back and let you know what I figured out from that. Okay, so I'm going to continue in the third part because I only have about 15 seconds left here. There was no solution for it, but I think I have a solution that I'll show you in part 3. So I will say goodbye and see you in part 3.